My name is Megan Ross, and I've spent most of my 34 years pretending that the things my family said didn't hurt. But that illusion shattered on a warm Saturday evening in Aurora, Colorado, during what was supposed to be a simple family barbecue. I had just come off a brutal 12-hour ER shift in Denver, scrubs still on, badge still clipped to my pocket, hair pulled back in a tired bun. I smelled like antiseptic and adrenaline. My feet felt like they were carved from stone. But I showed up anyway, because that's what I'd always done. I showed up, even when it cost me. Brooke, my 28-year-old sister, sashayed across the backyard in a brand new outfit she didn't pay for. She just signed her first big brand deal as a lifestyle influencer, something she didn't hesitate to announce to everyone within a 50-mile radius. My mom beamed like the sun itself chose Brooke as a favorite child. My dad kept refreshing her Instagram like it was breaking news. And me? I was the ghost sitting at the picnic table, visible, but not really seen. It all snapped when my mom, holding a plate of ribs, turned to me and said, with that sweet but sharp tone I knew too well, "If you tried as hard as Brooke does, maybe you wouldn't look so exhausted all the time." Before I could process the sting, my dad added, "Brooke's the future of this family, sweetheart. Maybe you should learn from her." Brooke smirked like she'd won something. And right there, sweat drying on my scrubs, ribs cooling on my plate, judgment burning in my parents' eyes, I felt something inside me crack. I looked up, calm but shaking, and said, "If Brooke is the pride of this family, then let your pride pay all the bills from now on." Silence dropped across the backyard like a storm cloud. Forks froze midair. Brooke's smile twitched. My dad's jaw tightened. And in that heavy, stunned pause, let me tell you, if you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or told your worth doesn't compare, share your experience in the comments. And make sure you subscribe, because what happened next changed everything. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and walked out of that backyard. The gate clicked shut behind me, and for the first time in my life, no one ran after me. I didn't always feel like an outsider in my own family. When I was a kid growing up in Colorado Springs, I used to believe that if I tried hard enough, if I studied more, helped more, stayed quiet when things felt unfair, my parents would eventually see me. Really see me. But in our house, light didn't shine evenly. It always bent toward my sister, Brooke. She was the kind of kid who walked into a room and made everyone smile, curlied hair bouncing, jokes spilling out effortlessly, a magnet for attention without ever trying. My parents loved telling the story of how, when she was 5, she danced on a restaurant table during my 10th birthday dinner, and the entire place applauded. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the girl who cleaned up, held things together, and blended into the background. Teachers praised my grades, but at home, those compliments became pressure. "Don't study too hard, Megan," my mom used to say. "You're too serious. Be more like your sister. Have fun." My dad agreed. Life isn't all books. Let loose a little. So I learned early that their version of love came with conditions I never quite met. By high school, the gap widened. Brooke was the cheerleader, the sweetheart of every hallway conversation. I was the girl who worked 2 part-time jobs after class, folding shirts at a thrift store and checking in patients at a local clinic to help with groceries and school supplies. No one asked me to, but no one stopped me either. Maybe they were just relieved someone was picking up the slack. When I got accepted into a nursing program at a community college in Denver, Mom barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, honey, but 2-year schools aren't real college." Brooke, who'd just been voted most photogenic, laughed and asked why I didn't try something less stressful. But I chose nursing because caring for people made sense in a world where not much else did. In the ER, kids never compared me to anyone else. They didn't ask why I wasn't funnier or prettier or more social. They just needed someone solid, someone steady. At home, steady was never enough. By 22, when my parents hit financial trouble, I stepped in without thinking. I covered their mortgage, their utilities, their groceries, their emergencies. I told myself it was temporary. Families help each other, right? Except the help only ever went one way. Month after month, paychecks disappeared before I ever saw them. Double shifts, triple shifts, missed holidays, forgotten birthdays, usually mine. But every time I walked in the door, there she was, Brooke filming another day in my life vlog while wearing clothes she bought with money I worked myself raw to earn. Just until I make it big, she'd say. Except big never seemed to arrive. And when Brooke eventually dropped out of college after just one semester, my parents didn't complain. They comforted her. "She's figuring herself out," Mom insisted. "She'll find her path," Dad repeated. Meanwhile, I was navigating life and death situations at the hospital. I remember coming home after a night shift once, still shaking after losing a toddler to cardiac arrest. I walked in hoping someone would notice I wasn't okay. Instead, I found my family crowded around Brooke's phone, watching her try on outfits for a video. "Oh, Meg, can you grab milk on your way back from work? We're out." I just watched a mother lose her child, but my grief didn't fit into their world. Still, I kept going. I told myself, this is what good daughters do. I swallowed the hurt, ignored the imbalance, and believed, naively, that someday they'd appreciate me. But the truth is simple. You can't earn love that someone refuses to give. And that Saturday barbecue was just the first time I finally said it out loud. For most of my life, anger wasn't something I allowed myself to feel. I buried it, smoothed it over, told myself I was overreacting. I convinced myself that if I just pushed a little harder, worked a little longer, sacrificed a little more, someone, anyone, would finally acknowledge everything I was carrying. But when Brooke suddenly blew up online, all the pressure I'd been swallowing for years erupted in slow, painful waves. It started small. A sponsored post here, a brand sending her a free skincare package there. My parents treated these packages like Brooke had just been sent Hollywood's golden ticket. "Oh my God, honey, look," Mom squealed one afternoon. "A company mailed her lipstick. That means she's really making it." I came home from a 14-hour shift, still shaking from performing CPR on a teenager. My back hurt so badly I could barely straighten it. And there they were, my parents crowding around cardboard boxes filled with PR samples, while Brooke flipped her hair and pretended to be shy. When I shared that we saved a child's life that day, Mom didn't even turn her head. "That's nice, sweetheart, but look at this shade, isn't it gorgeous?" That was the first time something in me hardened. Then came the comparisons. Dad would stroll into the kitchen while I was meal prepping for the week, scrolling through Brooke's Instagram. "She gained another 2,000 followers today," he'd announce, proudly, as if reporting stock prices. "You know, Meg, careers change. Maybe you should think about posting videos too. People love medical content." I stared at him, sweaty, exhausted, hands still trembling from a double shift. "Dad, I take care of trauma patients. That's not entertainment." He shrugged. "Well, maybe you'd make more money if you tried. Brooke says the influencer world is booming." As if saving lives was less valuable than advertising perfume. But things escalated fast. One morning, Brooke called a family meeting. She stood in the living room like she was announcing a presidential campaign. Her latest video, some poorly lit morning routine she filmed in a messy bedroom, hit 1 million views. Mom nearly cried. Dad popped open sparkling cider like it was New Year's Eve. I watched from the corner, nursing a mug of burnt coffee, feeling both invisible and strangely disgusted. But the worst came a week later, when Brooke landed her first major brand deal, 5 figures. And overnight, the family's worship turned into full-blown idolatry. Mom started posting Brooke's videos on Facebook like she was promoting a celebrity. Dad told every neighbor within 10-house radius that Brooke is going places. My phone buzzed non-stop with group messages. "Look how amazing your sister is. She's such a natural talent. We always knew she'd shine."
No one asked how my night shift went. No one checked if I had eaten. No one cared that I was practically living on caffeine and 4 hours of sleep. One evening, after stabilizing a newborn with severe respiratory distress, I walked into the kitchen to find Dad holding a printout of Brooke's projected annual income. "Meg," he said, tapping the paper, "look at the difference between your salary and hers. Maybe you should consider transitioning careers. You're smart. You could do what she does." I froze. My hands shook around my water bottle. "You're comparing my job to hers?" I asked quietly. "One of us deals with human lives. The other deals with outfits." Dad frowned like I was being dramatic. "Honey, money talks. Brooke's making more in a week than nurses do in months. It's just reality." Reality. That word felt like a slap. I began noticing things I used to ignore. How Brooke never paid for groceries, even though she filmed healthy haul videos with food I bought. How she borrowed my car for content runs and returned it with an empty tank. How my parents defended every mistake she made, even when she was flat out irresponsible. And the more Brooke's platform grew, the more unbearable it became. She'd parade around the house filming vlog segments, flipping her hair, striking poses, turning mundane chores into dramatic content. And whenever I entered the frame by accident, she'd snap, "Meg, can you move? You're ruining the shot." One evening, she asked me to pretend to bandage her wrist for a video about self-care after injuries. I said no. She rolled her eyes and muttered, "You're always so uptight. No wonder you're stuck." That word, stuck, burned hotter than anything before. Because I was stuck. Stuck paying bills no one thanked me for. Stuck in a cycle of sacrifices no one noticed. Stuck in a family that treated my hard work like wallpaper. Always there, never appreciated. By the time Thanksgiving came around, the resentment inside me was no longer quiet or manageable. It had roots. It had weight. It had a pulse. And when my mother compared my entire career to one of Brooke's sponsorship checks, I felt every buried memory scrape its way up from the dark. Everything I had endured was about to erupt.
The night after the barbecue, I sat alone in my car for nearly 20 minutes before turning the key. My hands were trembling, not from exhaustion this time, but from something deeper, something that had been building for years. The kind of hurt you don't just walk off, the kind that settles into your bones. I drove through the quiet streets of Aurora with the windows cracked, letting the cool Colorado air numb my face. Every stoplight felt like a moment to breathe, but instead, all I could hear were the echoes of their voices. "Brooke's the future of this family. You should learn from her. If you worked as hard as Brooke." It felt like my whole life had collapsed into that backyard. When I got home, my small apartment I barely had time to decorate, I dropped my keys on the counter and sank onto the floor. For the first time in years, the tears came fast, ugly, uncontrolled, the kind of crying you can't swallow down. I thought of all the years I had poured myself into that family, all the paychecks I rerouted to keep their lights on, all the double shifts I took so they wouldn't fall behind on the mortgage, all the late nights I cleaned the kitchen after Brooke filmed messy cooking videos, all the silent rides home from work where I reminded myself over and over, they just don't understand how hard I'm trying. But the truth I'd always avoided finally hit me. They understood. They just didn't care. The pain wasn't about that one barbecue comment. It was the accumulation of 1,000 moments where I swallowed my own needs to make room for theirs. 1,000 times I told myself, next time they'll appreciate you, only to be met with more indifference, more comparisons, more disappointment. And for the first time in my life, I let the thought surface. Maybe they never loved me for who I was. Maybe they only loved what I could provide. That realization broke something inside me. The next few days blurred together. I went to work numb,
moved through the ER halls like I was underwater. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I lied with practiced ease. At home, the silence became unbearable. I kept replaying the moment I walked out of that backyard and how no one called, no one checked in, no one said, "Come back, let's talk." It was like I'd disappeared and the world simply went on. By Wednesday night, I was sitting on my bathroom floor in scrubs, still wearing my hospital badge, too drained to take a shower. I stared at my reflection in the mirror across the hall, dark circles, swollen eyes, a woman who looked 10 years older than she was. When had I become this version of myself? When did I let so much of my life revolve around proving my worth to people determined not to see it? I reached for my phone and scrolled through old messages from my sister. Requests for money, requests for my car, requests for content help, message after message that ended with empty promises. "I'll pay you back soon. Once I make it big, I'll help out." Promises she never kept. The ache in my chest sharpened. It felt like grief, and maybe it was. Grieving a family I thought I had. Grieving the version of myself that still hoped they'd change. Around midnight, I called the only person who had ever shown up for me without asking for anything in return. My best friend, Alyssa. She picked up on the second ring, sleepy but alert when she heard my voice crack. "Meg, what happened?" I told her everything. The barbecue, the comments, the years of sacrifice, the moment I realized I was completely, utterly alone. She didn't interrupt. She didn't minimize it. She didn't tell me to let it go. When she finished, she said quietly, "Megan, you need to stop trying to save people who won't lift a finger for you. You need to save yourself."
The morning after that late-night call with Alyssa, I woke up feeling empty, but lighter somehow. Pain still sat in my chest, but the fog that had smothered me for days had thinned just enough for a thought to form. Small, fragile, but steady. I can't keep living like this. I got out of bed, pulled my hair into a ponytail, and opened my laptop. For hours, I scrolled through rental listings near downtown Denver, places I could afford, places that felt like a fresh start. I filtered by price, safety, distance from the hospital. For the first time in my adult life, the search was about me, not proximity to my parents' needs. By noon, I found it. A small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet, well-lit complex near City Park. Upper floor, balcony, sunlight filtering through big windows. Not fancy, not expensive, just peaceful. Exactly what I'd never had. I filled out the application with shaking hands. When I hit submit, something inside me shifted, like a door closing gently but firmly. 2 days later, I got the call. "You're approved. When would you like to pick up the keys?" That sentence felt like oxygen. I moved in on a Thursday evening. Alyssa came over with takeout, a plant, and 2 cheap folding chairs because I hadn't bought furniture yet. We sat on the empty living room floor, eating cold noodles straight from the containers and watching the Denver skyline flicker through the balcony window. "It's small," I said quietly. "It's yours," she corrected. And she was right. For the first time, the space around me wasn't filled with demands, expectations, or the heaviness of being taken for granted. It was filled with possibility. At work, I focused on sharpening my skills, taking extra trauma courses, signing up for leadership workshops, volunteering for mentorship shifts. I wasn't avoiding my family. I was simply putting the energy I once poured into them back into myself. 6 months later, My nurse manager pulled me aside. Meg, you've grown so much this year. The leadership team wants to promote you to charge nurse. My breath caught. Charge nurse meant trust, respect, recognition, something my own family had never offered. My salary increased, my schedule stabilized, and for the first time in years, I wasn't running myself into the ground to keep someone else's life functioning. The ER felt different now. Not easier, trauma never becomes easy, but purposeful. Patients looked at me with gratitude. Families thanked me. Kids clung to my hands during IV starts. And every time someone said, "Thank you for being here," I felt a warmth I'd never received at home. And then, life surprised me. It was during a mass casualty drill on a cold Tuesday morning. Chaos everywhere. Stretchers, fake injuries, actors yelling, alarms buzzing. In the middle of it, a paramedic called out to me. "You're Megan, right? I'm Ethan. Heard a lot about you." He flashed a smile that reached his eyes. Steady, grounded, the kind that belonged to someone who'd been through enough real emergencies to stop pretending. We ended up working side by side the whole drill, trading instructions, coordinating patient tags, moving through pressure like we had been doing it for years together. Afterwards, standing in the break room with terrible vending machine coffee, he asked, "So, is there any chance I could take you out sometime? Outside of stage disasters?" I laughed, an honest laugh I hadn't heard from myself in months. "Yeah," I said, "I think there's a chance." One day turned into three into 7. Soon, weekend mornings were spent sitting on my balcony with Ethan, watering a row of plants he brought over. Basil, tomatoes, lavender. Plants that didn't ask for anything except care and constant care that grew because someone tended to them gently, consistently. Something I was learning to do for myself. With Ethan, I didn't feel like a background character or a burden or a tool for someone else's comfort. I felt seen. One weekend, as we walked through City Park with iced coffees and the breeze tugging at my hair, he said, almost casually, "You deserve a life that feels like this. Light. Free. Light. Free." 2 words I never knew could apply to me. That day, as I watched the sunlight catch the lake, I realized something profound. My life was no longer about surviving what my family didn't give me. It was about building something new, something mine, something whole. And for the first time in my life, I felt hopeful.
For a while, life felt almost unreal. Peaceful mornings, steady work, a gentle relationship, a home that didn't smell like stress or resentment. I'd stopped checking my family group chat, stopped waiting for messages that never came, stopped offering help that was never acknowledged. My world had become quiet, stable, mine. But life, as it does, has a way of circling back. It started with a voicemail from my mom that I didn't return. Then another. Then 3 more in the same week, each one shorter, tighter, more urgent. I didn't listen. Not at first, but on a Friday night after a double shift, exhaustion won and I hit play. "Megan? Sweetheart, we need to talk. Things aren't going well here." I deleted it before she finished. For years, things aren't going well meant I needed to fix it. Their problems became my problems. Their bills became my responsibility. Their choices became my burden. Not anymore. But the calls kept coming. When I finally listened to one fully, my mom's voice was trembling. "Your father lost his job last month. His company downsized and we're behind on rent. Brooke said she's dealing with her own issues right now, and we don't know what to do. Please call us." Behind on rent? Rent? I frowned. They'd moved? I hadn't realized how much had changed until Alyssa forwarded me a link to Brooke's latest meltdown. An Instagram Live where she tearfully explained how a misinformed video she posted caused a brand partnership to drop her. Comments scrolled fast. Accountability matters. You can't blame the internet for your mistakes. Shouldn't have taken those sponsorships if you weren't prepared. Brooke, the once unstoppable influencer, was slipping. 2 days later, another headline circulated among local gossip pages. Lifestyle creator Brooke Ross loses major beauty contract after controversy. I put the phone down and sat with the silence. The fall of an influencer is never graceful, especially one who never learned how to stand on her own. Within weeks, the truth crashed down in full. My dad had been jobless for 2 months. My mom's hours at the bakery had been cut again. Their savings evaporated faster than they expected. Their lease on their townhouse expired and they couldn't renew. Brooke, after losing her sponsors, had maxed out her credit cards and had nowhere to go. The safety net I had provided for so many years was gone. They had built their lives on the assumption that I would always be there to catch them. And for the first time, I wasn't. Then the inevitable happened. My dad called. Not a voicemail, not a missed call, a direct, live call. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. Meg? Sweetheart, we're being evicted. The landlord came this morning. We have 72 hours to vacate. We need money, just enough to get into a new place. Your mother is crying. Brooke's packing her things. We don't know what to do. For a moment, the old reflex flared. The instinct to step in, to save them, to sacrifice whatever it took. But that instinct wasn't love. It was programming. I took a slow breath. Why are you calling me? I asked, voice steady. Because you're the responsible one, he said without hesitation. You always help, you always fix it. And there it was. The truth laid bare. Not, we miss you. Not, we're sorry. Not, you treated us unfairly. Not, you deserve better. Just, we need you to fix our lives again. No, I said quietly. I'm not doing this anymore. There was a long, stunned silence on the other end. Megan? He whispered. We're family. Exactly. Family doesn't use one person as their safety net. Family doesn't ignore someone until they need something. We'll be homeless, he said, voice breaking. You should have thought about that when you told me Brooke was the future of the family. His breath hedged. Megan, please. I closed my eyes. It hurt, but it was a clean hurt, like removing a thorn that had been lodged under your skin for years. I hope you figure things out, but I'm done being the only one who carries the weight. And then I hung up. Over the next month, I heard the rest from neighbors. They moved into a rundown extended stay motel off the highway. Brooke sold most of her belongings, including her camera equipment. Mom took a part-time cleaning job. Dad picked up sporadic manual labor shifts. Their world shrank in ways they never imagined. And no, I didn't feel joy in their suffering. Real satisfaction isn't about revenge. It's about relief. It's about balance. It's about finally exhaling after years of drowning. For the first time, the consequences weren't mine to absorb. They belonged to the people who created them. One afternoon, while sitting on my balcony watering the basil Ethan had given me, I realized something powerful. This wasn't payback. This was closure. Not spite, but self-protection. Not victory, but freedom. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe from them.
In the months that followed, life didn't magically become perfect, but it became mine. and that was enough. Some mornings I'd step out onto my balcony with a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise over the Denver skyline. The air would be cool, the basil plant beside me brushing lightly in the wind, and I'd think about how different things were, how different I was. Not harder, not colder, just clearer. I didn't check on my parents beyond what trickled through mutual acquaintances. I didn't stalk Brooke's social media or wait for apologies that were never going to come. They were on their own path now, messy, unpredictable, humbling, but it was their path, not something I needed to rescue them from again. The freedom of that, the emotional untethering, was something I'd never known before. One evening, Ethan and I walked through City Park, hands intertwined, watching families have picnics under the trees. Kids chased geese near the water. Couples lounged on blankets. The world looked simple in a way mine never had growing up. "You've been quieter lately," Ethan said gently. "Everything okay?" I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, everything's finally okay." He squeezed my hand, and for a moment the ache I used to carry, the constant, suffocating ache of not being enough, seemed like a memory from someone else's life. Because I had built something new, something sturdy, something rooted in peace instead of fear. And the truth is, not all families are meant to stay in your future, especially if loving them means losing yourself. I used to believe that setting boundaries made me selfish. Now I know it simply made me whole. What happened to my parents and Brooke wasn't my triumph. It wasn't karma I celebrated. It wasn't some cinematic revenge arc. It was just reality catching up finally to the choices they made. A reality I no longer needed to shield them from again. I wish them well, truly. I don't wish them pain, but I wish myself peace more. And for the first time, I can say, I have it. So if you're listening to this and you've carried more than your share, if you've been the strong one so long that people forgot you're human, if you've been overlooked, dismissed, or used because they assumed you'd never walk away, let me tell you what no one ever told me. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to save yourself. You're allowed to choose a life where you are not someone else's safety net. And you don't owe guilt to the people who built their comfort on your exhaustion. Thank you for staying until the end. Your thoughts matter here. Where would you draw the line? Share your story in the comments because someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone.